They not causing the music come on where they are?
They should.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to Straight Talk with Grover Thornton. I'm happy to be here again tonight. This program is designed to educate, inform, and to inspire you, and also to let you know how government impact our lives, state, local, and national. This show is produced by our Black media, Mr. Julia Hall, President and CEO. And I got to say this today, as I've stated before, we do have a radio show now, Hot 2100, and we had the dedication today at a new office on Chatham Parkway, and it was a wonderful, marvelous affair today. Over 100 people were there, music, food, and it was just marvelous. And I had the highest respect for Mr. Hall. He's a man with vision, and that's what's been lacking in our community for years. When I came up, leading up to the civil rights struggle, even before the civil rights started, we had vision. We prepared. We were working towards that objective to work hard for freedom, social justice, and equality. And we're still working on that, trying to achieve that today. I want to say one thing. I got my glasses on, but my eyes look bad around my left eye. I had surgery Thursday. Hopefully, it's doing pretty good. The surgery was very successful. I had my pressure in that eye was 27, and after the surgery, it was 8. So it came down very well. And the medicine is doing well. It just burned when I put it in there. However, I wanted to keep on with my show. That's my commitment. When I try to do something, I try to carry out my responsibilities as much as possible. And when I was able to talk, and you didn't listen to things I have to say, because things I've seen is to improve us as a people. But I got to start off by saying this. I really was happy to hear a commentator said on the other day on the TV about a week or so ago that the suicide rate in America dropped. Now, that was good news. People are not jumping up, killing themselves, but imagine facing the trials and the tribulations that we are all going to have to face. We've all had them in our lives. I know I had. I had to raise 2 boys by myself for 5 years. And how many men you know did that type of work? That was a tremendous responsibility. But I did it. I did it out of hardship too. So a lot of people killing themselves. Trust Christ. Trust God. In the world, he said you'll have trials and tribulations. So it should not be nothing new. And especially for Black people. That's all we know. 400 years of hardship. From 1619 to 1863. Nothing but trouble. Hardship. Terrible. So it reminded me like the children of Israel when they were under the bondage of Egypt. And God chose Moses to bring them out with a mighty hand. And when you read the scripture, it says their lives were roga. I didn't know what that word means. Usually, I always have a dictionary around me when I do my reading. I love to read. And I said, let me look this word up. And God told Moses that he mentioned that word to them. And when I looked that word up, that meant that word was severe. So they had terrible, severe hardship. And that's all we know as black folk. But we have learned how to endure. Black folk can endure hardship. So we had to endure terrible hardship, discrimination, segregation, denouncing us whenever we couldn't vote in the country that we fought for. First man died in the Revolutionary War to help George Washington, a black man named Crispus Attucks. First man died in the American Revolution to have this American nation was a black man, Crispus Attucks of Massachusetts. So we fought every war this country has ever had. And people come to this country and live better than we. I can never understand it. I would never believe that we were treated this way as second-class citizens. And as I first stated, Thomas Jefferson, they were so glad to get from under the rule and the bondage and the hardship of England. But he had 200 slaves when he wrote his that God endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Black folk did not enjoy that. By the 4th of July doesn't mean nothing to me. Because the 4th of July, we were slaves. And I remember reading where Frederick Douglass was invited to speak. You know, he was the great abolitionist. Wrote Lincoln all the time about freeing the slaves. And he was a great speaker. A man that stole himself away from slavery and educated themselves. And he was magnificent. And they invited him to Philadelphia to speak at one of the celebrations of the 4th of July. And he went on to say that it meant nothing to him because he was a slave and they were treated dog. Told these hundreds of people speaking to them that they were treated dog better than they were treating themselves as a human being and a man made in the image of Almighty God. America wrongly treated us for years and years and years and years. Talking going all over the world defending freedom. And yet, 10% of their citizens were treated like dogs. Brought us in as slaves, ships, and stole us. And I admit there were some of us sold some of us to white people. And today we still have black folk undermining their race, giving shelter to white people about black people's affairs. That's what we've all had. And we always call them like Uncle Tom. That man sit on the Supreme Court. Thomas never has one time voted for anything positive for black people. I never understand it. And Thurgood Marshall, when he got off the court after 24 years, he said these words. When he was chosen, he went before the NAACP board of directors and trying to get their support, but they couldn't support him because of their views. And Thurgood Marshall said these words: a black snake will bite you just as well as a white snake. So, but we as a people have come a long ways, and we still have a lot of ways to go. And myself, I always believe this, that, and I read this all the time, and over on my show lately, and that is, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. And I've done that since I was 17 years old. I fall in line with people who are fighting for social justice. I feel so good when I see these black women and all these officers. And I remember like the City Hall had only 2 people down there, as far as I knew. The lady that was operating the iron gate to get into the elevator, and somebody sweeping and dusting. That's what happened. But we've come a long ways. Now let's look at some of the things that affected this nation that has really disturbed me, and that is so much is going on in this Trump administration. It's the worst administration in the history of the world. Nothing like these things that never happened. Let's just review some of these things. Now, they still have this tariff business going along with China and America. But what he wanted to do, he wanted to all the nations that traded with America, he wanted to have a 50% tariff. And the federal court, which I didn't never know that they had this federal court. It was a trade federal court that dealt with trade. And they automatically say that what he was doing was unconstitutional. So they stopped that immediately. Now they call themselves appealing to the Supreme Court. So we don't know what Supreme Court. Now they'd be stupid on the court. I'll tell them to their face to allow every country that deals with us to put a 50% tariff when they bring things. That means we would hardly have to buy anything. I'll be caught up shut down. Go to these high prices. I was in Walmart the other day, about a week or so ago. I don't care who heard me. I said, do you know the CEO of Walmart said that they're going to, because of the tariff, they're going to raise prices. And even that no good Trump said that, how are you talking about raising prices when y'all gained over several $1 billion worth of revenue last year? And I said that right in Walmart. I didn't care who heard me. I said, you know what Walmart talking about raising prices, and they made over several $1 billion in profit. Now, if this country was, first things we have a $37 trillion debt. That's how much money the American government owe other countries. $37 worth of trillion worth of debt that we have. And he wants to add $2.4 trillion to it. Now, here's the thing I want to say. If this nation was suffering to a point where everything going to be shut down, everything going to be cut, not completely shut down, completely, but people lose their jobs, cut back some, where we could bring this debt down, I can go along with that. But he wants to have all these cuts with we're already doing. You know, Russ already done that. People lost their jobs and all that. To raise money to give the billionaires and the millionaires a tax cut that he did in 2017. So they cut all this jobs and everything to take this money away from people so that the business people could have that much money. So that's what's going on. He's doing that to give the billionaires a tax cut. That's terrible. That's wrong. Suffering children. My heart burns when I hear how Sudan mothers are seeing their children die, not only from diseases, but from starvation. How do you have a heart like that? Babies, toddlers, suffering for food. It's bad enough to see they're dying from diseases. Then when you come to what he's doing to the university, like Harvard University, shut down Harvard with money. And all these scientists that were working on diseases, well, they lost their jobs. So he doesn't care whether the diseases get worse and worse. They try to find solutions or cures for these diseases. Now they've been fired, laid off, money cut back. Now he wants to cut all the money for Harvard University. Harvard, they don't fall down to him. What a person. What a terrible person. What an evil person. But remember one thing, if I don't live tomorrow, the world belongs to Almighty God, and his days are numbered. Believe me when I tell you. Believe me when I tell you. Now he goes over to Egypt, over to the Middle East, and he goes to Saudi Arabia and all that, and brought back some deals, trade or whatever. But he was over there on a business venture, talking about they're going to build buildings and stuff like that, golf courses, everything to enrich himself. Even his son was over there trying to deal to make more money. How sad. How sad. Then he wants to accept an old airplane from some dictator. And they're already building manufacturing 2 new Air Force Ones, because the one is an operation that's been going for 35 years. And they took the old plane that this man, the dictator, wants to give him. it take $1 billion to put all that sophisticated stuff on it. That's on Air Force One. Lord, why did Republican people let that man do anything? I never could understand it. Never in the history of the American presidency. You know, years ago, everybody used to look at the president up until him with distinguished, you president of the United States. Now he is really set the presidency back. Never had a man with character like this. 34 felons. And if Obama had just one, we don't want no man when they had no felon. We never had a man with a crook. We never had a man where he got indicted. Just one Obama had. And this man has 34. He's a criminal. That's who's running the nation now. And he lies like nobody's business. When first day I get in, I'm going to stop the war. We've been in now about 4 or 5 months. The war ain't never stopped, got worse. And I'm going to break down food. Then I saw one day on the television, the bottom thing, he said, or the television, or what had that right at the bottom, that's a hard task to break down food. But that's not what he promised the people. He had never talked about food since. Bring down costs. Look up a dozen eggs cost $6 or $7. That's just some of the things that we've done. Now, all these other things are now, to show him how to dictate under the Constitution, the president is commander in chief of the Air Force and all the states, National Guards. They're under the president. When they didn't want to let the children into the high school in Arkansas, the governor Faubus was there. Terrible. He called out the troops. In fact, he was like the president for about 2 or 3 weeks until John Foster Dulles told President Eisenhower, "You're not this man is running over you. You president of the United States. You over the military." And so Eisenhower issued an executive order and took his army away from him. And they had to protect the students going to the Central High School in Arkansas. See, back then, the 60s, you all know, black folk, if you were living back there, you don't know what and how difficult that black folk had to endure. Terrible. I mean, one of my friends, he used to be my neighbor, he asked me the other day, he said, Mr. Thornton, let me ask you a question. He said, when you rode the buses, could you sit away on the bus, city bus, ride up down West Road, Martin Luther King Drive now? I said, no, sir. I said, they had a line where you had to go, the sign in the back, say from the back to a certain point in the front, and from the front for the white folk. As you walk on the bus to a certain part of the back. So that means if all the seats up to the front, if there are white people, so he said, you couldn't even go there and sit down. I said, no, unless you want to go to jail. We couldn't even vote in the Democratic primary. We could not even vote for the governor until the federal court, after much money was raised with Dr. Gilbert and all raising money to go within the federal court system to get a chance to right to vote. And that's why we won the right to vote in the Democratic primary. But the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, 1780, gave us the right to vote. And Congress will have the right, the power to enforce their legislation. That's on the 14th and on the 15th Amendment. And you think they did something about it? As a matter of fact, when Thurgood Marshall was arguing the case of Brown versus Board of Education, they do away with the dual system of education in America, so the public schools. The governor of Virginia had the audacity to say to the Supreme Court, please do not take away our way of life. When I read that in the book of Brown versus Board of Education, I did curse, so I'll be honest with you, that he had some nerve to have to ask the Supreme Court, don't take away their way of life, their way of life. So in other words, they want a right to keep us oppressed. They want a right to deny us. They want a right to, when the children at the public schools got rid of the raggedy books, like I told y'all, one of my shows, the boys asked his mother was the teacher at the Chattel School at that time, Miss So-and-so, I like to call names, Miss So-and-so, what do you want us to do with these books? Throw them in the dumpster, they're old? No, we're going to send those over to the black children. We've been through a lot. Black folk know how to endure. We know how to endure suffering. But it's time to bring that suffering to an end. And they're trying to, when I get to about my black thing, tell you about a black man tonight, but Santos, the governor of Florida, he's a racist, tried to run for president. He'd have been worse as Trump. And now let's look at this. Of course, you've been watching television, all this demonstrations are going on in Los Angeles, among black people, among white people. Some community and white people had to do with it, immigration and all of that. Now Trump is also already, I think about 15 countries or more. He got one set that you can't come into the country at all. And one African nation does that. And then on the other side, some of them may come, could depend on certain conditions. And Haiti is one of the ones on certain conditions. And I believe this country has all been a melting pot of different races. And that Statue of Liberty that the French gave the American people back there many, many years ago, because it's supposed to be a land of free, coming into a free land and all of that. Now, I'm the first to say that when you come into the country, you ought to come right. Jumping over the fence and all that kind of stuff. And now they're finding out now nobody's going to be picking these beans and peas except French people, Spanish people. Hold on, I'll be right back. Take a little short break. How am I doing? I look terrible with my eye. Look at that. I look terrible. I'm trying to keep the glasses on. Don't look.
Hello, world. We're here serving Savannah, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Brooklyn, Houston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and the world. The best music all the time. The greatest songs ever made, every time. Tune in to Hot 2100 Savannah and get a taste for your ears. Hot 2100 Savannah, serving Savannah and the world.
Hey, Fort Wentworth, Savannah, Georgia, surrounding counties. I don't know if y'all know, but y'all got a good man that's trying to do good things for y'all city. Mr. Rufus Bright. Y'all need to go ahead and re-elect him because he's already been in office. But I don't know if y'all know all the good things and wonderful things he's been doing for the city. I don't know if y'all know who I am, but I'm Big Brother Dre. This is the Found First production. You know what I mean? I want to let y'all know that this has been brought to you by the committee to elect Rufus Bright for City Council of Fort Wentworth in Savannah, Georgia. But y'all need to tap in and tune in. You know what I mean? And keep following him and vote for him. Get out to those polls. You know what I'm saying? Get ready. You know what I mean? Don't hold back. Don't sit there and waste no time. Run to them polls and make sure you go and run and vote for Mr. Rufus Bright.
Vote for Rufus Bright. Vote for Rufus Bright. Vote for Rufus Bright. Vote for Rufus Bright. You want to see some brighter days. Vote for Rufus Bright. You want somebody who knows the way. Vote for Rufus Bright.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back again. As I was saying before I had the little break, when you come to picking beans, peas, strawberries, all those things, African-American men and white men not going to be doing that. But the Mexican people would. Now they're trying to light up a little bit now because they find out that they're the only people be doing, picking these fruits and vegetables that we need in these stores. And what they did with Trump with that tariff, a lot of farmers have lost millions and millions of dollars because those ships moving because of that tariff business. He just messed up the economy. He really just screwed it up. Now you look at now he and Musk. Musk did all that stuff that he must have fallen out. Now they have a feud going among themselves. Musk even say he ought to be impeached, not to be making up after a while. But he caused all that trouble. And what hurt me when he took a chainsaw and demonstrated like he was cutting, that was symbolic the way he was cutting these jobs and putting these people into a certain misery. Now you look, they want to cut $500 billion for Medicaid. Do you realize how many people going to suffer in this country with Medicaid, senior citizens, children, over 13 million children on Medicaid? Can't get health. Where the people going to get the money to go to anything when children get sick, get fevers, and get sick? They don't have the money to go to these doctors. And as far as I'm concerned, like I told the doctor I went the other day for my own self, I said, y'all need to take that Hippocratic oath and throw it in the window, throw it in the yard, forget about it. It doesn't mean that. The first thing to come in your office, service, and money must be paid for services rendered. I had to pay $100 the other day to that man for to even look at this eye to start operating. I had to pay that to the place where I was going. And insurance going to pay the rest. Probably going to be about $6,000 to $7,000 or more for the insurance. And years ago, when doctors used to come to your home, they would come. And you had to pay them. They had to live like anybody else. Somebody no food. But they don't insult you when you first come there like today. The Hippocratic oath will tell they're supposed to render service regardless. If you don't have no money, you don't get no service. That day is gone. Out the window forever. So they ought to take that oath and throw it in the trash. Because now they cut all the money. They want to cut Social Security. They haven't got to that point. And Trump lied and said he would not touch Medicaid, nor Social Security. But he knows he got money. Those rich folk give him all the millions of dollars for election and everything. He told them when he had them down in the place down in Miami, that they gave him so much money for the election, he said that they get that same tax cut. Rich people, millionaires, billionaires. What they need a tax cut for? Suffering poor people, senior citizens. Some of them laying on a bed of affliction. Some of them cannot even get up and cook a meal. You'll cut the wheels on meal, all that. It's sad. Well, you might well cut the program down if you don't have nobody to deliver the food. If you cut the revenue where they can't hire the people to deliver to the senior citizens, how they go get it? Troubled times we have it in this nation. Troubled times. And I just don't know what's gonna be happening, because we have a lot of serious economic problems in this country. And none of them was like that till Trump got in here doing all that cutting. And the thing that always worried me is this: why don't they tell these countries where these people coming in to cross the border? Why don't they tell these people where they come from? We're going to talk to your president and your legislators, and they ought to let them know if you can't stop these people, then we're going to cut the foreign aid. See, when we send all the millions of dollars of foreign aid to them, the poor people probably will never see the money. The people in power gets the money. And that's why these people be trying to come where they can try to get better living in America. But we cannot be the Santa Claus of the world. And now the people ought to apply and come legally. Now, Trump wanted to throw the people out. The 14th Amendment say this: all persons born or naturalized in the United States are therefore citizens of the states in which they reside. And Mr. Trump wanted to try to take out the part born in America out of the Constitution. Now, if there's a child born and the mother is from another country, she comes in here and if she gets married, she's not a citizen, legally citizen, or she gets a child pregnancy and the child is born in America, that child is a citizen according to what the Constitution says. All persons born or naturalized is a citizen of the. So you're going to sit in the moment and what you're going to do with the child. Instead of them saying, okay, what we need to do, we're going to set up a program where you can learn how the ways of America, whatever they want to do, to be qualified to become a citizen of the country. But know what they want to do? Remedial. So I want to do punishment. Send you away. What you going to do with the child? I got angry when last year when the first administration, when he won, and they had all these children down in these camps, and they were snatching the babies. I wanted all the babies get back to their mamas, snatching them out of people hand like slavery. That's what they did with slavery. Sold the mama one way and the child here. Like in the book I read, Uncle Tom's Cabin. It's bad enough for slavery. You should have sold the daughter, little 13-year-old child with the mama. Sold the mama and left the child. So really, they want to call single families. Sold the mother away from the child. Sold the daddy away from the mama. Pitiful. And the book said that little girl cried all night long. Man, think of that. Somebody sold your mama away from you. And that Lincoln said in that second inaugural address, he talked about, he said, God sent that war upon us for what they were doing and how they did to his children. We are still God's children. We're still God's children. And that's terrible what they did. Now, I'm going to take a few minutes now. I want to talk about, that's all on my agenda for, one more. I want to talk about this business going on in California. It all has to do with this immigration, all around that. But what Mr. Trump did, like a dictator, he sent the national, he's in charge, the president is commander-in-chief of all the military organization in the country, including within the states. Because President Truman, Truman had to send it back in the 50s when they wanted to, when they shut the trains down about the mill steel, but in the modern time, more in the 60s, President Kennedy sent the troops to put the child in the University of Alabama, and also Mr. Merritt in the University of Mississippi. And that was held down there. Killed several U.S. Marshals, terrible. And what made me laugh when I was reading the book, 2 white fellows were working as electricians for the school, and they were there working. And they read all that hell outside by the hundreds, and all in the trucks with Confederate flags, and oh, Jesus. Terrible shot, killed 1 or 2 U.S. Marshals. And one of the men said to the other one, look at that young man over there. Look how dark he is. It wasn't about a black man coming into school. Look at these already a member. But one thing around him was another race with straight hair, but his skin was black. So because of your race and your color, they deny you equal opportunity. The 14th Amendment says equal opportunity for all Americans. So that's what happened. Black folk have suffered in this country. Really, really suffered. But we have been able to do it. And we don't know what's down the line for us. So in California, what he did, he sent in the National Guards. He's supposed not do that. He was supposed to wait until the governor requests that. Now, the only time the president takes authority and send federal troops and nationalize the situation and take control of the National Guards and bring them under the auspices of him is when a court order has not been carried out, when the defiance of a court order. And Mr. Trump took the oath that he would protect the country, they'd obey the laws, and all he said the laws are fully executed. And he himself was ignoring the Supreme Court. What kind of example is that of a president? But that's what he did. And he and Governor Newsom are having problems with that right now. Because the governor did not ask him to send no troops in. He just took it upon himself. Took the National Guard, sent in the Marines. He's supposed to wait until the man can't handle the situation himself. Then he requests. But he wants to be like a dictator. Now, was that the day they're supposed to have this big parade on his birthday? You know where you get that from? I'm going to tell y'all where you get that from. Every May, if you live in next May, the Soviet Union honors Mr. Lenin. I can't pronounce his first name, but his last name is Lenin. He got this big tomb that they stand upon when they're viewing the parade. they have a May Day in May, and they show all the big tanks and all the up-to-date missiles and all of that showing to the Russian people. And that's what they're doing in Washington today with that parade today. Because if I was there, I would not have looked at it, but that's what he's supposed to have done. Parade on his birthday. And that is showing America's military might. And that's what the Russians did. The man wants to be a dictator so bad, every chance he get an opportunity to copy that, a dictator, he attempts to do so. That's what's happening in our nation, in the world, and I try to inform you, because I know a lot of you many times don't look at the papers or the television or news, but you got to keep it going. What's going on? We got to know what's going on. Now, because we have to tell our children about history, get our children to listen about history, but not too many people I know talk about Black history other than me. I don't know nobody else. So when children don't hear things about Black history, they're not going to hardly hear them in the books, because they're taking them out of the books, they're taking them off the bookshelves, all writers. And let me just give you an example right here. As I move towards Black history, I try to bring on something about our race every show. And I know somebody is listening. Now, first, and then the voting will be the last thing we'll talk about. Now, during World War II, you know, for some reason they had, I don't know why they had this bad thing within themselves, that Black folk couldn't achieve this, Black folk couldn't achieve that. I remember when they said no Black man could be, well, he can't be no quarterback. They don't have the ability to be no quarterback, to learn all the plays and all. I wonder what the heck they think we were. Black man invented the blood bank. And you ought to have somebody in your family that had an operation, and you sure had to have blood. So we got all kinds of quarterbacks that are Black in the NFL. But what I was saying about doing World War II, and I will show you these men right here, how many they are, 2, 4, 6, about 8 of them here. These were pilots during World War II. So I guess y'all can see that. These men, they were pilots. Tuskegee pilots. They had to put on a pilot program to train these men to be pilots. The firefighters, shoot down planes and ships, shoot up ships and all of that. And first thing, no Black man can't be no pilot. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? What the fighters do, their job was to protect the bombers. When the bombers, the B-25s and all that, go bomb, drop bombs on Germany, bombs on Japan. This happened in Europe. They were in Europe. The fighters protect the bombers, because you got the other fighters from the opposite side attempting to blow the bombers out of the water. So what the fighters do, they protect the bombers to give them an opportunity to drop their bombs and shoot down the other fighters who are trying to shoot down the bombers. That's the bottom line. And these men never lost a bomber. They operated them planes. One or two of them got killed, shot down and killed, but they were called the red tails. I read an article, they saw something about the red tails. I got to read why they were called red tails, but they had the red tails on their planes, and they were magnificent. Magnificent. They never lost one bomber during World War II, and they shot down a lot of German planes and protecting the American bombers as they went to destroy the Germans. Now, what got me along the other day, I was reading several years ago, it was 65, I believe it was. Well, yeah, it was anyway. This baseball player right here, you see him by name, there's his name right now. His name was, he's dead now. His name was Roberto Clemente. I think he came from, he was a Puerto Rican, but Cuba. So some man wrote a book about him in Florida. Wrote a book about Clemente. He was a great baseball player. I remember listening and playing. Dangerous hitter. But there was an earthquake, a hurricane, one of the two, in Nicaragua. And he was a humanitarian person, loved humanity. And so what he did, he chartered a plane, a small airplane. He wasn't no pilot, he chartered it, and loaded up with goods and food to take it to the people because of that terrible situation of the hurricane, or either it was a tornado. One of the two, or an earthquake. And the plane crashed. And he was killed. So this man, some man here wrote a book about him and wanted to put it in the schools where children could read about him. And the same governor there in Florida, Santos, wouldn't allow that to happen. And so these people who are fighting him about taking the books off the shelves, I don't know why he wants to do that. Why he wants to, give people an opportunity to read. That was the main thing that the white man didn't want the slave to do. Once you know how to read, then you begin to reason. You begin to think. And your thinking process becomes alive. You begin to make decisions. That's why they kill you and whoop you to death as a slave if you learn how to read. And that young lady who was a poet named Phyllis Wheatley, when I think anything that you need to tell your children, look up some of these things. Get look up here. What Mr. Thornton talk about this lady, Phyllis Wheatley? What about her? When you was a slave, they didn't want you to read. They would kill you. And some of these white girls who were fond of the Negro slave children, some white girl taught Phyllis Wheatley how to read. So that's what I did. When you're able to read, then you can be able to think analytically and make proper decisions. So I don't know why the government doesn't want taking books of black authors off the shelves and off the list as a shame and a disgrace. I don't know why you don't want people to read. I showed you last one about a fountain what they had for white folk, beautiful, and a piece of mess they had black folk drinking out of. And I looked at TV one night, and the white girl drank out the one said color. So her friend said, you just drank out that one said color. She said, all tastes the same. My Lord, ignorance is something. Ignorance is something. Now, I want to show you all about this right here. Happened in the 60s. And next one, I'm going to start talking about the boycott here in Savannah, Georgia. That we made changes for you, for our young girls, our young men. And the federal government finally came in the 60s and that President Johnson started doing a lot of things that knew it was a terrible wrong the way they did black people. Terrible wrong. But God raised up proper people like Martin Luther King, NAACP, and all of that during this time. Powerful organizations. Fight for justice, fight for civil rights. Even myself. I think sometime several months ago, where the man drove the car and rode over people, and several of us were laying out in the street. Some fool could have driven the car right over me and several others. But that's the chance we took. Sick of being treated like second-class citizens. We wanted freedom. We wanted justice. We got tired of getting to the back. Tired of like you was a dog. You could sit down and eat. You on the highway, you couldn't go to a restroom. You had to urinate like you was a dog in the street. Ooh, Jesus. Now, look at this here, say, Freedom Riders. Freedom Riders in the 60s. You had an organization called CORE, headed by Mr. Farmer. And students, not only black students, but what they couldn't understand, they had a lot of white students joining black students trying to make these changes because they knew they were wrong. And you had, even by Martin Luther King started the bus thing in Selma, Alabama. Not Selma, in Montgomery, Alabama. Because according to how the bus driver felt that day, you had to step up on the bus in Montgomery, put the money in the thing to get on the bus, And sometimes they have hell in them. When you step off the bus driver drive off. How mean that was. And when that lady, Miss Parks, wasn't trying to look for nothing, that lady that worked as a seamstress all day long, she was tired. She just got down there and sat down on that bus. And it's bad enough to ask her to get off to give a lady a seat. They wanted her to get off the seat and give it to a man. They didn't recognize her as a woman. And she held her ground. She refused. And when they arrested her, this one I'll show you. One time I showed last year or so, when she's sitting on the bus, and the bus was empty. Montgomery broke the bus company. So the Freedom Riders was what they call, you have what you call intrastate, I-N-T-R-S-A, intra, R-A. And you had intrastate and you had interstate. Everything go over interstate from one city to the other. But when you have the intrastate, that's interstate. Interstate, you're going to the opposite side, I'm sorry. Interstate is riding right in here. But when you got the interstate, you're going from one state to another. And that's what they did. They left the north and coming into the south. And it was hell. The Ku Klux Klan, all the people, meet people at the bus stops and beat them up, everything. And the government had to step in. They even set one bus on fire. It was terrible for the Freedom Riders. And the Supreme Court ruled that interstate segregation was unconstitutional on the bus. We have been through something as a people in this country. And we're still going through it. They have what you call a red line. You couldn't even borrow no money. They only loan money to certain black people. And they had redlining. They wouldn't loan you money. They find a reason. Discrimination. Even the government itself, the Department of Agriculture, suffered the poor black farmers. Their own government. And I give President Obama one thing credit. He made them pay all the money they would due to the black farmers. They won a little few money in a few court cases, but many of them could not farm. They couldn't buy the loans to get the equipment to farm. They went bankrupt on their own farms. We have been some suffering people. And that's why we got to do better as a people, as a race of people. And all of our young people, many of them fell in line with that drug mess. Like I told people before, my own two boys got with other people. But thank God they got away from that mess because we had raised them. And like the word of God said, bring up a child where you'd have it to go. And when they get old, not my word, they won't depart from it. They will never part from the training that you gave them. But if you never give them the training, culture, values, they have no reason to come back to anything. But when you instill values in your children, then that's what they will do. So many young people have been killed by these drugs. And the Bible says in the book of Proverbs, if you don't raise your child right, they will cause you to cry. How many parents haven't cried? How many parents haven't cried? How many? Haven't cried because the son, daughters are dead for fooling around terrible vices. So we got to do a better job with our children. The white man does not care. It's up to us. We got to open up our opportunities, get them prepared for opportunities. As I said last month, so many of our black girls can't find no decent husband. Most of them in the jailhouse for drugs. 82% of the incarceration of black men. That's a lot of men. A lot of men. Not criminality, but it's drugs, which is a criminal law. And Obama was trying to let some of the people out with a program, and we'd have to see. So we have a long ways to go as a people, and our responsibility is even worse now to deal with because of society is changing so much criminal ways. You can't even pick up the telephone no more. Somebody calling you, trying to do this. There's all kind of scams going on, taking people money, especially senior citizens. Lady be calling me, answer on the phone. Hello, you have been approved for $41,000. Your applicant. I told her, I said, how is it going to be an applicant? I ain't never applied from you. I ain't never applied for no money from you. So how you say my application has been approved? Scam. I don't answer them. Terrible crookedness in the world today. It's awful. Yeah, but when you got the leadership, it's a crook. What kind of morals he has to set an example? He had to set an example. And we don't have that nationally now. We don't have that nationally. So all I want to say my time is about up, and I just want to say I try to spend time educating my people. And that's why I have a lot of respect for Mr. Julius Hall. He doesn't tell me to say this. If I disagree with him, I'll tell him that. But everything he's been doing has been good to uplift the community. We just don't have the leadership, ladies and gentlemen, that we had when I came up. That is what's so sad. We had a lot of the ministers right behind with Mr. Law, making the changes, doing things. They're looking for things that need to be done. They had not been done to benefit black people. I don't see nothing going on, nothing, but nobody's speaking out on anything. Everybody just going along. Everything is fine. I realize the fact that my time ain't too much longer in the world, but I can say I try to make a difference. And we need more of our people to make the difference. So to be an example for children, be an example for young people. That's what it takes nowadays. Because now you see everything is going against us. They're trying to redo everything that happened back in the past. And start from the leadership. If you do not have good leadership, that's when things go bad. We do not have leadership in our government. The Congress is scared of him. And that's why next year, this is going to be my last thing talking. Next year is the midterm election. The House of Representatives have to go up for election every 2 years. And we got to put them Republicans out. They're scared of Mr. Trump. And maybe when we get complete control of the House of Representatives again, then we can make the change and maybe bring back a lot of the jobs, make a lot of other changes. But we got to do that. So, and they don't want you to vote. They try to keep you from voting. They keep trying to dilute our vote. But I was reading something the other night by Reverend Chopton when he made a speech at one of the Democrats' conventions. And when he made the speech, he was talking about the 3 black men. They had an assault on Mississippi during the 60s about voting. They had cities, small towns where no black folk could vote, period. Better not talk about he want to vote or she want to vote. So they had all these college students, black and white. They went to Mississippi by the groves, by the thousands, to register black people to vote. And there were 2 white, a Jewish boy, a white boy, and a black boy. Young man, I should say, no boy. One was Goodman, Sherman, and another fellow. 3 of them. And they locked them up for some reason and kept them in jail until a small town in Mississippi. And kept them in jail until it got dark, almost dark. And let them out. And they got in their car, and the Ku Klux Klan followed them. And right behind them, they didn't know where they were going on the road. They didn't know no shortcuts to get back to town or nothing like that. And they followed them. It was Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner. Schwerner was the Jewish young man. Goodman was the black young man, and Cheney was the white young man. And they followed them until they got in a road where they didn't know where to turn. And they made them get out the car, and they killed all 3 of them. and they put him in some damned. And FBI, Hoover was the FBI man then. He was never the racist. Called Dr. King a liar. Dr. King resented it and went to see him about it too. All because a man with leadership, leading black people out of the bondage of racism and discrimination and hatred. And then they'll go to church and they'll say, "Dear Lord and Father of mankind, forgive us of our frivolous ways," and turn around the very next day. We can't let black folk vote. My Lord. And then we're voting next year. As Sharpton said, our voting was soaked in the blood of these three men. Our voting is soaked in the blood of the three little girls that Dynamite Bar went that night and put under the church in Alabama. And when the little girls got ready in the dress room, getting ready with the robes and everything for the service, the bomb went off, blew half of the church off, and killed those three little girls, 12, 13, and 14-year-old little girls. The blood is soaked in that. That's what voting is. That's why they went to Alabama, Selma, where nobody could hardly vote. More black folk in the city than white folk, but hardly none of them could vote. And fought until the civil rights, 65 voting right acts were passed. And we can't get a lot of black folk to get off their behinds and vote. You got to get off and vote next year in November. You got to do it. Stop a lot of this suffering. You got to do it. And all the Republicans need to get out of office. Every one of them ought to be put out of office. One or two of them were not afraid of Trump, but the mass of them are afraid. Now, this terrible bill they call a beautiful bill, like I just showed you, $500 billion cut from Medicaid. Senior citizens, what happens? No health service. So the funeral home people might as well get ready. Y'all business going to be picking up. Because if a senior citizen don't get no health care, you know what they're going to do. They're going to die. A lot of children, too. A lot of hospitals in the rural area are closing down. Because the man want to give more money to rich people. That's the kind of country we're living in today. And we got to take heed of and work with one another, particularly as a race of people. We have to close ranks more and more. Like we did that during the civil rights time. I never was more proud of my people than in the 60s. When we had our mass meetings. If you didn't get to a church 4 o'clock, you got no seat. My, did we break Broughton Street. I'll tell you about that Broughton Street boycott next month. I'm never proud of my people like I was then. We shut Broughton Street down. We made them before the Civil Rights Bill of 64. Martin Luther King said that Savannah was the most integrated place in the South. Because I got to say one thing, the white man and the black man, even though they had that segregation, we have good coexistence. But they had a line where they didn't want us to cross the line. They weren't no liberal people. But we had to fight to show them that we're determined for justice that God gave us. But ladies and gentlemen, my time has come to an end, and I'm glad. I hope you did learn something from my speaking tonight that you can pass on to your children. Our children are the next generation. We are moving off the scene. And we got to get stronger, and we got to instill in them the fight for freedoms, social justice, economic freedom. They must do it. But I'm going to close tonight, and I enjoyed talking with you all. And I hope God will spare me to be here next month. It's up to His will. And we'll be able to talk more and more on the things that are happening to make us a better people. We need to sit together as a people. So God bless you. And I hope that you all have a prosperous week coming up. Thank you very much. And good night.
like this.